What's up, everybody? It's me, Dustin Coyle, once again coming at you live today on a Thursday, July 26, 2018. I'm going to be doing what is episode 52. It's going to be UFC on Fox 30 breakdown. Well, let's start the show. Alrighty, I hope everybody's having an awesome week. So far, mine is just beginning, but it's going pretty well. Not too many complaints here. As I said, we're going to be talking about UFC on Fox 30, also known as UFC on Fox Alvarez vs. Poirier 2. A rematch of what was a great fight last year, about a year ago, a little bit over that. But before we get into that, we'll go ahead and break down some of the earlier fights in the event there. Like I said, UFC on Fox 30 is coming at you from the Scotiabank Saddle Dome in Calgary, Canada. It's going to be this Saturday night, July 28th, 2018. And I believe the main card starts at 6 maybe. 6 o'clock Mountain Time, 8 o'clock Eastern, I think, because they want it to be done by 10 o'clock. So that pretty much means that we're going to be going through a full day, or all of these fights basically going to start earlier in the day. I think maybe around 1, I believe, or so. 1 o'clock Mountain Time, 3 o'clock Eastern, I think, is when the fights first begin. And we're going to start there on the super undercard here. I'm still only going to do an actual breakdown of the top. I think I'm going to do 6 fights, I believe. Yeah, the top 6 fights, which are the 4 on the main event and then the 2 on the prelims, which I believe are going to be on FS1. But I am going to at least give you a full rundown of who is fighting a little bit. And like I said, we're going to start there with the first fight of the evening, or I guess the afternoon. In the featherweight division, we have Hakeem Dawodu, and he's going to be taking on Austin Arnett. Dawodu, 7-1-1 in as a mixed martial artist, 6 knockouts to his record, 0-1 in the UFC, lost his debut. He's a hometown kid fighting in Calgary, fighting out of Calgary also at a place called Champions Creed there. And on the other side, Austin Arnett with a little bit more UFC experience. He's 0-2 in the octagon, 15-4 overall. He's from Lewiston, Idaho, so a bit of a homer for me. He trains and fights at a Sikh-Jitsu in Spokane, Washington, which is obviously right across the border there from Lewiston. And the odds for these two fighters, we have Dawodu as a pretty serious favorite here. He's coming in at a minus 360 and a plus 270 for the underdog, Austin Arnett. Alrighty, we move on to the light heavyweight division, where we have a matchup between the number 14, Gazimurev and Tigulov, and the unranked Ion Kuchelaba, the Hulk, or whatever. I believe that's his name, the Moldovan Hulk. Antigulov coming in with a 20-4 record, 2-0 in the UFC. That's where he's getting that number 14 ranking. He is a Dagestani product. That's where that difficult name comes. I'm getting pretty damn good with these terrible names. Even that Ion Kuchelaba, that was a pretty tough one. Man, going all around the world here. But yeah, from Dagestan, he's now fighting in Coconut Creek, ATT, Coconut Creek, Florida. And he holds a Master of Sport certification in freestyle wrestling. On the other side, Kuchelaba's 13-3-1 as a professional fighter, 2-2 in the UFC. Very young, 24 years old, like I said, from Moldova, fighting out of Moldova. The Moldovan Hulk, he actually painted himself green for his last weigh, completely green for his last weigh-ins. Dude's ripped. Let me check the odds on this one as well. So Antigulov is going to be the favorite. He's looking at a minus 160, and Kuchelaba plus 130 there. All right, let's move on to the lightweight division, where we have a matchup between unranked John Makdessi and unranked Ross Pearson. Makdessi coming in with a 15-6 record, 8-6 in the octagon. Both of these guys are experienced in the octagon. Ross Pearson 12-11 in the octagon. So 23 fights for Peterson, 14 fights in the UFC for John Makdessi. Makdessi, black belt in karate, taekwondo. He's going to be fighting at a TriStar with Ross Sahabi. And on the other side, Ross Peterson is also a black belt in taekwondo, brown belt in judo, blue belt in jiu-jitsu apparently. So most of his time there with the stand-up version of the grappling art. And he's fighting out of Alliance MMA San Diego, along with at least one other person on this card. All right, let's move on to the women's flyweight division. We have a matchup between Alexis Davis and Caitlin Chookagian. 19-7 record for Davis, 6-2 in the UFC. Been there for a while, done very well. She's a Canadian-born, but fighting out of AKA in San Jose, black belt in jiu-jitsu. On the other side, Chookagian, 11-1 in her pro record, 3-1 in the UFC. From Pennsylvania, she is going to be fighting out of New York City with the Renzo Gracie team, brown belt in jiu-jitsu under Renzo Gracie. So, it's pretty similar. She's got a fantastic skill set there for her. All right, moving on real quick here to the flyweight division. We have number 9, Dustin Ortiz, taking on number 12, Matheus Nicolau. 18-7 record for Ortiz, 7-5 in the octagon. Been there for a while. Brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He's from Tennessee, moved up to Milwaukee. He's going to be fighting out of Rufus Sport with Duke Rufus as his head coach. On the other side, Nicolau, 13-1-1 in MMA, 3-0, undefeated in the UFC. Black belt in jiu-jitsu from Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Moving all the way up here to Jackson Wink, pretty much the best coach in the game. That's going to be a fantastic matchup there. To the women's strawweight division here. Number 12, Rhonda Marcus, taking on number 13, Nina Ansaroff. 8-5 record, 4-4 in the UFC for Marcus. She's going to be fighting at a TriStar with Varas Sahabi. John Makdessi also going to be there, coming from her team. On the other side, Nina Ansaroff, 8-5 overall, 2-2 in the UFC. A third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. She's going to be fighting out of Coconut Creek, Florida, with the American Top Team. That's a team we've already talked about. We're going to talk about again at least once. And then to the lightweight division, a matchup between Devin Powell and Alvaro Herrera. Powell, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, just 8-3 in MMA, 0-2 in the UFC. Had a little bit of a rocky start. He's fighting out of Port City, BJJ in South Berwick, Maine. On the other side, Herrera, 9-5, 1-2 in the UFC, also a little bit of a rocky start. From Guadalajara, Mexico, he's going to be fighting out of Jackson Wink. All right, now that we've eaten our way through the majority of the undercard, we got two more, like I said, two more fights here on the prelims I want to talk about. We're at those now, and then we got 4 fights, all 4 fights on the main card. All right, the first one we're going to talk about here is in the lightweight division between MMA veteran Cajun Johnson, and on the other side we have Islam Makhachev. After taking a 2-year layoff from September of 2015 till September of last year, Cajun Johnson has had back-to-back wins in the UFC since his return, starting with a third-round knockout of Adriano Martins. That was September of last year, and then he came back earlier this year in March and earned a split decision victory over the favored Stevie Ray in that fight. Cajun Johnson has a 23-12-1 record overall in MMA. Just 5 knockouts, but 11 submissions. He is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Has been for a long time, 34 years old, fighting at a TriStar along with a lot of these other guys. Faraz Sahabi, one of the best game planners there is. 5'11", 74-inch reach for him. Pretty sizable, pretty tall guy for the lightweight division for the most part. And on the other side, Makhachev has been pretty impressive so far. He's got a 15-1 record. His only loss comes to Adriano Martins, which happens to be the guy Cajun Johnson knocked out. That was back in 2015. Since then, 3 straight victories. A decision victory over Chris Wade in September of 2016. A decision victory over Nick Lentz in February of last year. And a first-round knockout in January of this year over Gleison Tebow. That was obviously his most impressive performance that he's had. That's probably the most impressive victory overall that either of these fighters have. Like I said, he's 15-1 overall, 3 KOs, 6 submissions, a lot of decisions on his record there. 5'10", so he's going to have a little bit of a height disadvantage to Cajun Johnson. Probably an age advantage, though. He's 26 years old, an international master of sport in Sambo, including a 2016 gold medal at the World Championships in Sambo. He's going to be training in AKA, fighting out of AKA, San Jose, along with Khabib and all of the other, I don't know, it seems like they have just a ton of Eastern European guys, or I guess that might be Asian, Northern Asian guys, training there. They're all beasts, these Sambo guys, these freestyle wrestling guys. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Surprised to see that Antigulov isn't training there. Actually, it's weird that he's training in Coconut Creek. Not that weird, but I mean, it's just, there's some Russians down there and everything, but it seems like the really good grapplers seem to go out to AKA for one reason or another. I see this as a pretty good fight. Almost certainly going to be a decision. Cajun Johnson, his most devastating attack here is going to be the submissions. I don't think it's going to work on Makhachev. Makhachev's going to bring the Khabib-like pressure. He's probably going to beat him up over 3 rounds. I don't know if he's going to be able to get a finish on him. He did knock out Tebow, but other than that, he doesn't necessarily display the most power. Only 3 knockouts and 15 wins. I mean, that's a very small number. Almost everybody has more than that. On the other side, though, Cajun Johnson only 5 knockouts and 23 wins, so I guess that's actually a little bit worse. I basically see this as not really so much of a back and forth. I think it's probably going to be a 3 rounds to 0 rounds beat down a little bit. I think Cajun Johnson is basically going to be on his back the majority of the time, trying to pull off submissions, seeing if he can get guillotines or triangle locks or anything like that. Whereas Makhachev's probably just going to put the beat down on him, and if he ends up finding a submission, he might go for it. But I suggest, or I think there's probably just going to be just a bully beatdown situation there. I predict a 3 rounds to 0 round decision victory for Islam Makhachev, and you can put that in the books. Yeah, I didn't even look. I guess I'm looking right now. Makhachev is a minus 600 favorite, so a 6-1 favorite, plus 400 for Cajun Johnson. So I guess that's not too much of a stretch on that one. Being so decorated with that gold medal in Sambo, it's pretty wild there. All right, let's move on to the welterweight division. This is the final fight in the preliminary card that we're going to be talking about here. It's going to be a matchup between Jordan Mein and Alex Morono. After back-to-back losses to finish out 2016 and in July of 2017, Eric Silva came back in December of last year with a unanimous decision victory Jordan Mein, came back last year with a unanimous decision victory over Eric Silva. Definitely a good performance. The 2 losses before that, Bilal Muhammad was the one in 2017, and Emil Weber Meek in 2016. Nothing too bad there when those are, Meek not nearly as much, but Bilal Muhammad is a experienced UFC fighter, and Meek obviously a pretty big up-and-comer. Eric Silva, though, that's a good win there for Jordan Mein. He's standing at 30-12 overall record, 16 knockouts, 7 submissions, so able to do both relatively well. But you do have to watch out for the hands a little bit. 6 feet tall, 73-inch reach. As a welterweight, it's pretty good. Not terrible, not great. But he is going to have the height advantage in this one a little bit. He's fighting out of the Canadian MMA Center in Lethbridge, Alberta, so he's going to be a little bit of a hometown guy here in this fight, as it's not in Alberta, but it is in Alberta. I was just kidding, but yeah, I guess he's a little bit of a hometown guy there. On the other side, Alex Morono. 1 loss recently. Well, it was technically 2 losses. He did get knocked out by Nico Price. That was back in February of 2017. Price ended up getting later suspended because he failed a drug test for marijuana, and so that ended up being turned to a no contest. Realistically, though, that was a KO loss. Split decision loss right after that to Kieta Nakamura. And then he comes back and rights his losing ways there with